whenever in the tantric tradition, in the Hindu tradition, there's so many ways that you can um, bless and start a pilgrimage or an adventure or an endeavor. And so from our tradition, mostly all of us here from our tradition, it's Ganapati, the elephant god. And he represents so much, but we're just going to ask him tonight to bless us as we move on this threshold, cross the threshold into this portal of the Havening sessions, and to bless us and to give us his container. He is the ruler of the Muladhara chakra, the first chakra. So his energy is earth. He's very grounding, which I think is really important for us and for me to feel grounded in ourselves. And so we could move forward with a sense of security. And he's also the guardian and he protects us as we move along. Most people know him as the remover of obstacles, and he does do that. So we're asking him to sort of use his glorious trunk to clear the way so we can actually see what obstacles are in front of us. So he doesn't just remove them, he helps us remove the veil from our psyche, from our sight, to see what maybe what barriers we're putting in our own way and what are already there that we just want to clear away. So he does so much. And Ganesha is also a lover of sweets, which I am. And so he's always like eating these little sweet cakes. I don't remember the name. It went out my head. But he also reminds us to enjoy the sweetness of life, to ingest the sweetness of life. So as we all have different struggles and challenges that we're facing and moving through, um, it's always this tension of opposites. Like, can we move through this and find a new way of seeing at the same time that we're ingesting and seeing the sweetness and taking in the joy of life? So having said that, I just ask us to Om Gam Ganapataye Namaha, whether you chant it or not, but we are invoking and inviting this the energy of Ganapati, the energy of this deity to be with us here and open the portal for us and assist us on our journey. So that's that. And then I also want to say that these are right now, especially right now, it's small gathering and we know one another pretty much. Um, Kathy's been in other trainings, but not everyone really has been in her presence. But she and I have been friends since the 3rd and 4th grade. So we have gone through many, many obstacles together. Yes. And also experienced so much joy together. So as we move through, the Haven is a safe space. And I ask each of us that whatever comes up, what might come up that feels very confidential, very private, that you might share, that we keep this container very private and hold it with care and love and confidentiality for each other. So having said that, there we go. We're going to head on off. So spring. One of the things that when I had most of you know we were away for 5 weeks. We went down to Arizona, we trained, we retreated together. And so when I came home, it was a big adjustment because I attributed all my scattered feelingness to being ungrounded and to be in the motorhome and not in my space for all those weeks, which did have a lot to do with my sense of feeling, unmoored, untethered. But what I really realized too was we were chasing weather, we were chasing seasons on the way down, why we were there, the different places we traveled, on our way home. And after I just like settled in and really settled into this container, what I realized was that spring is very erratic. It has this energy of impulsivity, and it's exciting, and it also can stimulate this sense of urgency. So as we're coming out of winter, which, like Katrina, is I like winter. I feel at home in winter. Um, Once you start to see, oh, okay, the trees are maybe going to start to, the leaves are maybe going to start to blossom and grow, and the flowers, the plants are poking out like they're trying to push, and then all of a sudden they're in bloom, and we think, oh my gosh, it happened so fast. But the truth is, if you really pause and pay attention, you see that those we have a lot of daffodils and different flowers that seem to grow wild here. But if you pay attention, it's taken that root to grow deeply, but also that stalk to push through the earth. It's taken time. It doesn't happen that easily as it starts to grow. And then I'm looking out at one of my little trees out there, and it's starting to flower. It took a while. It was like I was waiting and waiting, and then the flowers started to, the petals started to bloom, and they're just beautiful. But what I think spring asks us to do is to pay attention and to really look at nature, not only the plants and the flowers, although that's huge, but to think about the animals that have been hibernating in the winter, that you could just imagine a bear like coming out of its cave, like it's just kind of like sleeping. It just doesn't come out like that. It like takes its time. But depending on our personalities too, when spring starts to like come and we start to move with it, I keep going back to this feeling of urgency, like, oh my gosh, we've lost time with winter. We haven't been able to get out there. I've been lazy. All the things that we kind of tell ourselves that we've done through winter, are really sometimes not accurate, because that was a time and that was needed. And now as we transition into spring, there's a transitioning. It's almost like spring has its own seasons. Like it starts out kind of slow, and then it starts to bloom, and then it's like in full glory, and it's ushering into summer, which is like this whole other energy of collaboration and partying and just like, yeah, rah rah kind of feeling. So I really want us to think about, what does spring offer you? What is the energy? What is the essence of spring? And Deb, you moved up a little north in Arizona, so you may even have a little bit more of that sense of being able to watch the season and to see it unfolding. Where, when we were in Phoenix, it just seemed to be one season, though it truly wasn't. So I'm actually curious, and once we start to chat a little bit, um, to notice, to see how you all respond to the seasons. And of course, our doshas, our primary constitution, which most of us know what that is. And if you don't remember, or those who are listening to the recording, you could go to my website, pauletteBodeman.com, and on the homepage, there's a free assessment, or you could email me and we will talk about it. But the seasons affect our primary doshas, and this spring is kapha. It's kapha season. So there's a lot of earth and a lot of water, and which is great. But so one thing that we should pay attention to for ourselves during this time is, whether that's our primary dosha or not, those elements are very strong this time of year. So we want to embrace them, but we don't want them to be out of alignment. So we don't want too much earthiness and we don't want too much water. So how do we, what do we do to be able to balance that? And I could talk a little bit more about that in a little bit, but basically you want to make sure that you are doing the things that ground you, but there's also movement, but it's slower movement. So for me, who moves quickly, I need to make sure that I'm walking, but I'm not, going crazy, like fast walking all the time, like really kind of settle, find a pace that balances those elements within me so I don't get thrown off. Because not only our dosha, but if the energy of spring, if the essence of spring has a more erratic, sort of impulsive energy to it, then how we respond to that is how we respond to our own self-care and our relationship with ourself, and how we respond to our relationship with our loved ones, those closest to us, and others in our community, our friends, our friendships, our relationships. So it's important, I feel, that we really get a sense of what spring has to offer us and what we want to do with it. How do we want to embrace it? And I'm going to go through some of my notes to make sure that I'm finding everything. It's stimulating. That's a word. Spring is stimulating, which is a good thing. It's a very creative time. And so one of the qualities of spring that you don't always think of is actually patience, which is not one of my strong suits, I have to admit. So spring asks us to be patient, that as the excitement of spring, to see it starting to blossom, coming out of winter, to be patient with our projects, with our creative ideas, with ourselves, with our relationships. Like, really take time to notice where we're starting to push ourselves. The tendency in spring is to push ourselves, and we become overwhelmed and exhausted. Anna Michael's coming in very quickly. We become overwhelmed and exhausted very quickly when we push too quick, too fast in spring. So it is a period of new beginnings, obviously, of growth, of transformation. It's a time to really continue to nurture those seeds that we planted in winter, and to start to shuffle through them and say, okay, is this where I want to put my energy as I move into more of the expansiveness of spring and summer? Or and how much? What's my capacity for that? How much capacity do I want to extend to these projects?